me the recording. And then I can also like spotlight all of you guys.
Just realized I forgot to hit record. So thank you for bearing with me. Along the way, Salesforce is guided by 4 core values: trust, customer success, innovation, and equality. With the contributions that Salesforce has made to the fight against COVID-19 through innovative new platforms like Work.com and Vaccine Cloud, the success from anywhere flexibility that Salesforce has granted to their employees worldwide, the 6 million volunteer hours that Salesforce employees have done over the last 20 years, and the Racial Equality and Justice Task Force that is driving systemic change in our workplace and communities, it is no wonder that Salesforce has been named a world-leading company in innovation, philanthropy, culture, and an employee's choice best place to work. Now, let's give it up to our panelists who are past and present APMs and APM interns at Salesforce, who will talk to us about their product experiences and how the Product Buds community can join the Salesforce Ohana. So without further ado, Emmett, would you like to start with your introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I think I'm the oldest APM here. I was in the cohort of 2020. So I graduated May 2020 from undergrad and then started working in July 2020. And it has recently been my 1-year anniversary at Salesforce. So I have 1 more year to go before I graduate the program. So very excited. I'll pass it off to Tina.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Tina. I'm a new grad and I'm joining Salesforce as a full-time this year. I interned last summer, so I'm super excited to be here to connect with all of you. So yeah, and then I'll toss it to Ian.
I am Ian Carter. I was a APM intern. I am really excited to talk to you guys, get to know you all and connect. I'm really excited to be collaborating with Product Buds on this. I will pass it off to Ifechi.
Hi, I'm Ifechi. I was also an APM intern this summer. Tomorrow will be our 2 weeks of being off. Yeah, and I'll pass it off to Sasha.
Well, my name is Sasha. I'm a student at University of Michigan, and I was also an intern this summer.
Great. Thank you so much to all of our panelists once again for your time. So Emmett, can you please start off with explaining to everyone, what is the Salesforce Associate Product Manager program and what makes it a special program that really allows you to feel really confident to be in it?
Yeah, the APM program was started by Brett Taylor, who used to be the Chief Technology Officer of Salesforce, is now, I think, president. He's been promoted a few times since then, but he graduated from the Google APM program, where he took a lot of the learnings and the structure of the program and brought them to Salesforce and created the Salesforce APM program. And what it is basically is an accelerated mentorship and development program for new grads to accelerate from just coming right out of college to fully fledged PMs. And I think a few things that make the Salesforce APM program unique are you have just a ton of mentors. I have, I think, 4 or 5 mentors at any given time that are all at different levels of leadership and on the corporate ladder that can really give me different viewpoints and vantage points over what's happening in the company and also just what's happening in life. I am going through a bit of career existential turmoil right now. And I went to all of my mentors recently. I was what do I do with my life? And being 30s, 40s, 50s, they all had different viewpoints to give me. And I thought that was super useful. The APM program is also one of the few APM programs out there that has 3 promotion opportunities. So most APM programs have 2. And so that means after you finish the APM program at Salesforce, you can come out as a senior PM. And I think that's really unique and special. Another thing is cohort bonding is just, I think, unparalleled. Ian and Ifechi and Sasha can speak about their most recent experience with the cohort because I think they did an exceptional job of bonding during the pandemic and just virtual bonding as well. And so those have been a few of my most favorite things and things that stand out about the program to me.
Awesome. Yeah. And, like everyone, Emmett is like a new grad APM right now, as well as Tina. But Ian, Sasha, and Ifechi were APM interns this past summer. So can one of the APM interns explain like what is like the difference between, like the APM intern program and like APM new grad?
I can hop in. Yeah, so I think the main difference, of course, is the timeline. So with the APM full-time or new grad program, it's a 2-year rotational program. You spend 8 months on 3 different products, which are very like carefully selected. With the intern program being on 3 products in 3 months, just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So you're on 1 product for the 3 months, and you get to do a lot of work and see a lot of how the product progresses. So it's a little bit accelerated, but it's really, really awesome for learning. But you still have the benefit of the cohort. Yeah, tons of bonding, which is tons of fun. Still like tons of mentorship. Even sometimes like you could even say it's like too much mentorship, but I think it's much better to be on the higher end than the lower end personally. So I would say, yeah, the main difference is the timeline, but you still get those like, cohort, mentorship, connection perks. Yeah.
Definitely. Love that there are similarities, but also differences. And it allows people at all stages of their product journey to be able to try it out working at Salesforce. Yeah, so this next question is for any of the panelists. Why did you choose to work at Salesforce? What makes it a company that really stands out to you? And when people ask you like, oh, why choose Salesforce over another company? What do you usually say?
Yeah, I can hop in. I guess one thing that I liked about Salesforce is, well, I guess 2 things. One being the business model. So I like the idea of working for a B2B company just because at the time I was recruiting, there was a lot of controversy about like consumer goods and just manipulation of consumers. So I wanted to be on like the tech space on the side of tech that kind of helped businesses succeed and improve their workforce, which I thought that Salesforce does a fantastic job at. And then the other side being values. I think a lot of companies advertise and speak about their values, but I've noticed that some don't like live up to how much they speak about them. So that's something I really liked about Salesforce while recruiting. I'm sure Emma and Tina would have more experience with it, but as an intern, I definitely felt like the culture stood up to what they really like presented themselves as, and it was really like fortunate to be part of that.
I can also jump in, and I would encourage Tina to speak on this as well, since I feel like this must be fresh in your mind, having just recruited this past year. I'll talk about why I chose to return to Salesforce or full-time, because I did do the internship. I really, really love the people in my cohort, and I think they do a better job every year of selecting the cohort and feeling out that cohort cohesion, so much to the point where I lived with one of the other APMs in my cohort from like July to November during the pandemic. And we had a grand old time in an Airbnb in the South Bay. And I think that was one of my main reasons, that given that I knew going anywhere for full-time was going to be essentially different from doing an internship, I really preferred going back to a place where I knew most of the people I liked. I think that even because it's so impossible to predict what the day-to-day tasks or interpersonal dynamics between you and your closest coworkers are, it's much better that you go somewhere that you know you'll have an emotional support, a social support, and a group of people who knows you and can support you, than to go somewhere where you both don't know the work and don't know the people.
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in right there. Echo at what everyone's saying. So last summer I was interning here and everything was virtual. So in fact, like I never got to see in person any of the other APM interns that I was working with last summer. But then we still stayed in touch after the internship because we just grew so close to each other and we supported each other on whatever decision we made. And for those who returned, a lot of them decided to actually be in the Bay Area just to be able to connect with each other more. And last week we actually got our first dinner together. And so just to like echo everything, it's like the cohort experience is just amazing. That's like one of the biggest reasons I chose to return, but more so mentorship, like the cohort experience exists because of the mentorship. They really, really make it so that it's not like a this me versus them kind of relationship. It's really about growing together as aspiring PMs. Like we learn from each other. We're purposefully assigned to different projects and different products so that we can like learn from each other's projects, learn from what I'm doing versus what he's doing or she's doing. And it's just like a great experience, it's a bonding experience. And there's really no like me versus them. And I think that's crazy. I feel like compared to other PM programs, just really having this together mindset is just incomparable. And that's one of my main reasons coming back. And I'm so excited.
I love all the things that everyone has said so far about, why Salesforce is a company that stands out. And it's been my experience too. It's the values that Salesforce has and the people that make it such a positive and warm and joyful experience. And so at the end of the day, I think that's like a big factor as to why Salesforce is a great place to work. And as a follow-up question that's related for any of the panelists, do you have a defining memory of your time as an APM intern or new grad so far that has really stood out to you that you always look back and smile at?
Yeah, I actually have a couple memories. 8 of us took a trip to Miami and decided to live together. And we hyped housed it in Miami for a week. And that was just great because it was like in the middle of the pandemic. And we were like, forget it. We're going to get to know the cohort. We're going to get to know each other. And really just hyped house and live together for a week. Like you don't know like somebody until you actually live with them for a week. Like, because you could talk to them as every day on virtually, but when you live with somebody, it's different. And it was still that amazing, same, awesome experience. I would also say as a secondary, just the games we would come together and play. I know Sasha and Fetch, like the online games. I'm not going to bring up any specifics, but the specific games that we play were just amazing. Just the cohort. Salesforce did a really good job at picking everybody because there's no different groups. Like we bonded together, all 12 of us. And those 2 things really stood out to me.
I'm so jealous that you guys got together. It's amazing. We should have done that last summer. We just didn't know that pandemic was going to go on this long, but that's amazing.
Yeah, I was one-on-one with Ian while he was in Miami, and I was like, I have so much FOMO right now with you guys traveling to party capital. But in response to Grace's question, I think another really great opportunity the APM program gives you is a ton of executive speaking opportunities and a lot of like high impact speaking opportunities. There are Salesforce has like a bunch of conferences throughout the year, to be honest, but the 2 biggest ones are Dreamforce and Trailhead DX. And I was able to either present or have something of mine be presented at both of the ones this year. And I think like normally employees at the company who are even like higher ranking than me would probably not be able to get those opportunities. So I think like being able to stand on that virtual stage and really get that sort of exposure and that sort of experience has been unparalleled.
Definitely. So it really sounds like as an APM, you get like high impact, high visibility, and really fulfilling work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I was just going to echo that. It's not just the like exec presentations. I think just the level of ownership that you get as like almost a new grad junior PM is like, it's incomparable. Like when you join in, they don't treat you like a new grad. They treat you like any other full-time PM, and you get a ton of ownership and respect all across the company. I mean, for me, it's like week 3 and I'm already leading one of the products for this big initiative that we have. And it's just so exciting to be able to connect with so many people, and they treat you so well. So it's like, yeah, it's all about, I think the APM program just does a really great job of just setting the tone for how people respect you and the ownership that you get. So yeah.
For sure. And that's something that makes this program really unique, and one that any product bud here should definitely apply to if you are interested in really seeing what that culture and what that fulfilling and impactful work looks like. So now, moving on and switching to a topic that I'm sure everyone here is thinking about. Okay, so everybody's like, oh my goodness, recruitment season around the corner. What do I do? How do I prepare? What are the questions that I am going to be asked? And so now we're going to ask our panelists, on a high level, what is the type of advice that you would give to aspiring product managers, aspiring product manager interns as they are going into recruitment, either at Salesforce or beyond? And feel free to take this into whatever direction you feel like is going to be most beneficial.
I can start. I think, so I'm really not one for like prescriptive generalizable advice in terms of applying to anything, but I think what the APM program really looks for is a diversity of different backgrounds and different experiences and different viewpoints that they can bring together, because the strength of the cohort structure is being able to expose your viewpoints to a sounding board and getting that feedback, and also being exposed to other people's viewpoints, whether it be for product, for business, or just for life things in general. So I feel like from my perspective, the best advice I could really be is like, really do some deep digging within yourself and think about what your strengths are and play to those strengths. And it doesn't have to be related to business or tech. Like I did a lot of theater extracurriculars in college, and I produced a few shows, including the commencement musical. And so during my interview, I talked a lot about how I was project managing more than 100 people during commencement, coordinating with all the different departments like costumes, lighting, sets, makeup to really put this production together. And it was a very good anecdote and analogy for PMing. So I would really recommend people to like take your own experiences, like don't try to be someone you're not. Take your own experiences, your own strengths, and tailor that to the skills and the core competencies that can be applied towards being a PM.
Yeah, and I will also say, get to know the company. A lot of advice would say, people will say, get to know the company so you know the products. I would say, get to know the company so you know how product managers think at that company. Because you have to realize a lot of companies like B2C companies think different than a B2B company, and just realizing how that product manager inside of that company think may be different. Because let's just be honest, product management is so vast amount of ways you can answer questions. There's so many different directions and so many holes that you can dive into, but that product manager is looking for maybe that one or two things, that one or two answers. I've been on plenty of interviews where the product manager is like, that's a great answer, but that's not what I'm looking for. So just knowing how the product managers think at that company really helps a lot. Because like every company has a different way of thinking. Not giving any details here, but like Salesforce may think different than Google may think different than Microsoft. It really depends on the company, and just knowing their products and how they think and see about things. Even think about like, why did Salesforce acquire Slack? Just thinking about those thoughts will definitely get you in the mindset of what does a PM at Salesforce think about? And that would definitely help in interviews.
And for those of you who like never had any PM experience before, let's say applying, because that was definitely my case as well, is to also think about how you can, and this is also similar to Emmett's advice, position your previous experiences or projects in a way that focuses on PM, and like Ian said, PM specifically at Salesforce. So I have like a lot of like teaching experience. So being able to sort of remodel that and show, like talk about how teaching can be a form of like expertise and development, and how that can impact ownership and other PM skills. Like you don't have to specifically have like PM at X company or like any type of PM experience before applying to these programs, you can just pull on your past experiences and see kind of like steel threads or through lines that run through all of them and how those represent you as a PM.
For sure. That's one of the biggest things that I've been hearing from so many people in my network who don't have prior PM experience. There's a lot of insecurity there because there's thoughts of like, oh, I'm not qualified. I shouldn't even try to apply because I don't have prior product experience. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't limit yourself. Just apply and see what happens. If you don't get a call back, then so be it. At least you know you tried. But if you never apply to the job, you never know what the outcome would have been, right? So to everyone on this call, you see a job description and you look at the bullet points and you see, oh, I don't have this so-and-so skill. I don't have this many years of experience. Okay, you can work towards gaining those years of experience. You can work towards gaining those skills, but apply anyway and see what happens. And if it doesn't happen that first time that you apply, try again next year or the year after, right? It's really a matter of staying resilient in the job search process, because I'm sure that every single panelist right now has had so many job rejections, but they've been here, they are here now because of how resilient that they were through the job search process. Am I right, panelists?
Yeah, most definitely. And just bouncing off what Grace said, yeah, don't discourage yourself. Like me, I'm a high school dropout. If I was able to get in here, I had no internship experience before Salesforce APM program. Just apply. You never, your dreams may come true. Never know until you apply.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, Ian, thank you so much for sharing your story. All right. So is there anything else that anyone on the panel specifically did? Did anybody do like mock interviews or like read any specific like PM books or anything like that for recruitment?
Yeah, I found mock interviews super helpful because that was one way I saw how other people were answering questions, not only just, well, first of all, to hear myself out loud as I was talking out loud and kind of answering the questions. It really helped me realize like some things that I was saying was silly, or if I was just fluffing things up, which you definitely don't want to do. You want to be to the point, and saying things out loud really helps you recognize that. But then on the other side of that is like helping others mock, hearing their answers. Sometimes I even heard people kind of say things in a way that I would have never thought about, which helped me further like develop my answers in other kind of questions. So just picking up some frameworks that others use is super helpful. One thing I recommend is, I know we talked about like preparing your experiences and how they fit into the skills that are needed for PM. One specific thing I did is like make a chart. So I put down skills that are needed for product management, and that you can do through like research, and they're just looking at what skills you need to be a PM, and like what is a successful PM. And then I made the second column kind of stories or like project work, or like Emmett talked about his experience. So like just matching up different experiences that I had to those specific skills. So I would be able to create those well-prepared answers for when they're looking for those specific skills.
Definitely. And speaking of skills, an area that I've always been asked about, and even I've been concerned about in the past, is, oh, like I am not someone who has like a CS degree or a related technical degree or software engineering experience. Am I still qualified? Should I still even apply to APM programs? Any of the panelists, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. There, just in my cohort, there are multiple people who came from consulting. There's someone who majored in mechanical engineering during undergrad. There are people who come from like design. So I think this is not to say that you have to be something STEM or STEM adjacent, but just that I'm sure that these people all really were able to package their experiences in a way that was suitable for the APM program and market themselves as good fits in that way.
Yeah, I think one important thing that comes and like part of why CS has always been asked for in PM is the need to be able to communicate with engineers, because that is like counterpart that you'll be working with very often. And in my opinion, you don't necessarily need a CS degree for that. What you really need is like a lot of compassion and a lot of kind of like a solid growth mindset, because it will be a lot of points of views that you haven't been exposed to before. Maybe if you haven't done like CS classes or degree, you just need to really know how to communicate with people that see a product or even like the world from a very different lens. So being incredibly patient is like super important with that if there isn't like prior CS knowledge.
Definitely having patience with your engineers, and honestly also just having this deep growth mindset and sense of curiosity in your everyday work, right? Not being afraid to ask the engineers different questions to fill in gaps that you have in knowledge. And at Salesforce, there's very much an open culture of people are very open to answering your questions, and you shouldn't ever feel ashamed to ask a question, because even if you're coming from a technical background, there are still like certain intricacies that you might not know that exist on your team and on your product. So just being constantly very curious and very humble whilst you're working as a PM is like super important, no matter where you are, honestly, right? Yeah, definitely. So let's see, what else? Is there anything that any of the panelists would like to share, something that like you wish you knew prior to entering the world of product management?
I can start that one. I feel like there's actually things that I realize about product management like every day as a new hire, like new full-time, but also during the internship. But I think to echo what Grace was saying, like just having that curious, like intellectual mindset, always learning from other PMs, is just like a great place to start. I think one thing that I wish I knew before my last summer internship is just how different PMs are. Like when I came to this company, like I thought PM was this sort of like, I wouldn't say cookie cutter, but like there was this ideal PM in my mind. And then I came in, interacted with my manager and other PMs and realized like every PM has their own style, their own approach to looking at products. They could be more hands-on, they could be more TPM-like, or they could be very strategy-focused, looking at vision. And just knowing that actually opened my eyes to like, what kind of PM am I? Like, what kind of PM style suits me? And it's really a journey. It's like, I'm constantly learning more about other people, but at the same time, like learning more about myself, learning about like what kind of style fits me. So maybe that's one mindset thing that I wish I knew before, is just realizing that there's just so many different types of PMs that come from so many different backgrounds, not necessarily computer science, not necessarily an engineer, and just knowing that I could be any kind of PM I want. And, the environment is there, like Salesforce provides that environment. And so that's one thing for sure.
Yeah, I would plus one to what Tina was saying. Like, I also thought product management was cookie cutter by hearing like everything people say. They're like, oh, you'll be the CEO of the product. Oh, you just come up with ideas and you run with it. But I would say it's definitely a lot more fluid than that. Like my experience was probably different than Sasha and Fetchy because we all worked on different projects. So we all groomed different areas of product management within our own skills. So just the fluidity of what product management is, and even within the same company, it was vastly different. I would say sometimes even within the same team, it could be different. So that is something I really wish I knew going in, because like you read all the books, you prepare on the interview. On the interview, you're like, you come to the interview with that cookie cutter mindset. It gets you through the interview, but actually working the job is a whole lot more fluid. And that's just something I wish I did know.
This probably applies to like more than just PM in general, but I think really prioritizing the relationships you make at the company is really just great for your personal and professional development. It's like really central to being a PM because naturally being so collaborative, you want to have good relationships with the people you're working with, and even with people who you don't work with, because maybe there will be a partnership later on, like you never know. But that benefits you in so many ways to have those connections. So yes, like get your work done, do your project stuff, but still trying to like carve out a little bit more time in there for chatting with people and even just making those like casual relationships.
Fantastic. Thank you all for such insightful responses. And I especially love the points that Tina made about, there is no one single type of PM out there. PMs come in all different styles and backgrounds. And it's what's really great about the world of product management. Like, you don't have to come from one specific undergrad degree or master's degree. You don't have to come from one specific like career path and skill set in order to succeed. I think what's great is that there are so many different ways that you can break into product management, and then therefore there's so many different types of PMs out there. So don't feel like you have to, change yourself completely and kind of like align yourself in a certain way just because like, oh, like most PMs look a certain way or act a certain way or like have a certain background. Like you can leverage your own unique background and like break into product management through that. So yeah, with that being said, I think it's a good time now to go into the Q&A portion of this panel. So if you have a question, please try to turn on your camera so that our panelists can see your face, and then let us know which panelists you would like to ask a question to, and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. Also, a disclaimer, none of us are hiring managers nor recruiters for the Salesforce APM program. And so, try to keep that in mind as you're asking certain questions. If we can't answer your question, then we'll let you know. But do keep that in mind that we are not hiring managers or recruiters for this program. Okay. So let's see. Nicolesh, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my questions to all the panelists. Just with sort of recruiting for other companies, I feel like with a lot of B2C companies, it's easier to get an understanding of the products because you sort of can access them, you can play with them. As I'm sort of recruiting for Salesforce or thinking about recruiting for Salesforce, how do you sort of go about understanding the products that you guys develop and build, given that I may not necessarily have access to them?
I'm going to jump in on this one because I was also a software engineer intern at Salesforce before I did the APM intern program. And like, yes, understanding the product is like really important. I think if you're in a B2C company, that's going to be a lot more important. But at Salesforce, even people at Salesforce don't know what's going on like everywhere because that's basically impossible. So in terms of what to learn about the product, knowing it at a high level and its mission is going to be great. That's going to be awesome. Going on a trailhead for a little bit, you don't even have to take like product specific trails, even if they're like personal development trails or just something you're like actually interested in. Like, oh, I've used Trailhead and I like have seen the mission and still a Salesforce product. You don't need to get like too in the weeds. No interviewer, like I would really doubt any interviewer is going to grill you on like specific Salesforce products because that's just something really hard to expect of especially a student because you truly also aren't really Salesforce's end user if we're being honest. And then now with the new Slack acquisition, maybe you've used Slack, but again, those would just be brownie points. Knowing it at a high level, great. Don't necessarily kill yourself learning pipeline inspection as a student. Yeah.
Yeah, additionally, so as mentioned, Trailheads, there are some that actually allow you to like sign up for like a trial, and it's not absolutely, it's 100% free. It's just for people to learn. And they have like projects that you'd follow along on Trailhead, and then you do your activity with it. One example is Einstein Discovery. That's actually what my manager used to onboard me to better understand my tool. So it's just, you can even do like a 30-minute exercise with tools that way by signing up through the Trailheads.
Yeah, and I would say just know the basics. And what I mean by the basics is you should know what a CRM is. Like if somebody asks you what a CRM is and you just like don't know the answer, like that's Salesforce business. Like that's the basic. And number two, you probably should, I mean, maybe dip your toe into what Einstein is, because you make, I don't know, it's just like Einstein is everywhere. So those two basics, like I would just cover that within Trailhead, maybe a YouTube video. I wouldn't say you need to fully like immerse yourself that deeply. But I did simply because I just wanted to know what how the way the product managers think. But that would be my advice. Know what a CRM is and know what Einstein is.
Yeah, thanks. Just Ian, just on that quickly, like you sort of mentioned how you were able to gain an understanding of how the product managers at Salesforce thought, like, and they think, like, is that sort of how you did it, like through watching PMs on YouTube at Salesforce, or like sort of what strategies did you use to sort of develop that understanding?
Yeah, just watching PMs on YouTube, and I believe there's a section in Cracking the PM Interview. I have the book right here actually that talks about the difference between a B2C and a B2B. And it's just like knowing like what the design choices, like how do B2B PMs think about end customers? Are they thinking about the end user, or are they thinking about the IT person buying the product? You know, that's very different than like, I don't know, let's say Google search. If you're a PM on Google search, you may be thinking about, oh, here's the end user, versus like, I don't know, you are a PM on Marketing Cloud. You may be thinking about who is buying our product, not more say the end user. So just knowing how to think like that. And for me, it was a lot of YouTube videos, a whole lot of YouTube videos per se.
Great. Thank you, Nicholas, for your question, and panelists for your awesome insights. Now, Namdi, would you like to go next?
Yes, hello, hi. My name is Namdi Jibe. I'm a computer science major with a minor in design thinking. Very nice to meet all of you, and thank you for this panel. Just a quick question. So I feel like when it comes to interview season, and at the same time, you're probably doing internship or you're doing summer classes and all these other things at once, how do you find ways to sneak in interview prep? Whether it's not, and thank you, Ian, for answering my question. So I don't know if it's just like listening to more podcasts on your commute, or, you know, trying to, you know, read a couple snippets of books here, trying to check your social media. What are ways that you found, okay, I'm definitely feeling a little bit more prepared and confident for these interviews coming up?
I can start. So I had the most hectic schedule while I was interviewing and recruiting for Salesforce. I thought I was going to go crazy at a certain point, but I think interview prep is just, yeah, there's part where it's like doing mock interviews or like watching all these videos, but I feel like when you actually get to the interview and you're talking to this person, it really shows if you're just genuinely interested in products, if you're genuinely interested in the tech scene, the things that are going around today, not just Salesforce. Like, they're not going to expect you to be a Salesforce expert at the interview. Like, I am not a Salesforce expert yet, I feel like. And so, in fact, I think it's more important to, like you said, like listen to podcasts, listen to like all these, read tech journals, just know what's going on and really show that you're like genuinely interested. And that really shines through. They would ask questions not about like, hey, are you what, like true and false, does Salesforce does this and that? Like, no, it's going to be more like, you know, what excites you about product? Like, when you see a product, how do you feel? Are you more of this kind of product or that kind of product person? And so, yeah, that's how I like squeezed in my interview prep, I guess. But also it's just something that I do on a daily basis too. So it's just like, you know, but yeah, totally echo that. Like, just keep doing what you're doing and you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, and just to dive in a little deeper, what I typed, like I would carry around a notebook where I went, and I would just sit there and think about like, how would I improve this? Like, I could be in class and like, how would I improve Canvas? Or I could be watching Netflix. I wonder if Netflix ever thought about Netflix with friends, you know, or I wonder if Netflix ever thought about this. And what I mean by bringing by with a pad is because those ideas will leave you. So if you use it on an interview, you want to do a startup, well, I even have I have this humongous whiteboard here that I'll just whiteboard ideas on. It's just like I could be doing absolutely nothing, but my brain would just be fully in that product mode. Like, how would I improve, I don't know, a backpack, or how would I improve the reason I say technical and non-technical, because on certain interviews, I have definitely had to design a non-technical product and it caught me off guard, and I don't want to be caught off guard with like design a laptop case. And I just feel like, oh man, I've been practicing technical products all day long. So I definitely just bounce those ideas in my head. Like I could be walking to class and just be like, what's a better method of transportation from class to class as a student? Or what's a better freshman experience? Like, could I build an app that will just direct them to class with the most optimal route using Google Maps? Like just those ideas every single day help me interview prep.
Definitely. And pro tip, by the way, you can also take those like product features and proposals and kind of write a blog post on like Medium or like LinkedIn or your own personal website, and have that like linked to your portfolio, and have that portfolio link on your resume. Right. And so a recruiter or hiring manager could see that you've done deep dives into certain products and really thought the way that a product manager thinks, not just on the product that you're, trying to work on, but also other products in the industry. So case studies are what those are called, product case studies. Yeah. All right. So now Megha, and then after that, Iris.
Hello, everyone. So mine would be in the lines of an interview process. So I would like to understand when does the usual interview process start, and how many rounds, and what's the timeline from the start till the end? What's the duration of the process? So that would be great. Anyone from the panel? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say, so as I think Grace posted in the chat, the full-time application has closed, but I believe the intern application is still open. And usually interviews take place in the fall, with the on-site or like virtual on-site happening around, I would say like October, November, and then offers are extended around that time as well. So like the whole thing wraps up before the end of the calendar year. And Sasha and Afechi, you guys just went, and Ian as well, you guys just went through this. So if that sounds right to you, let me know.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I have a bad time remembering timelines, especially pre-quarantine, especially in terms of the actual like process and like the different rounds. We've been, or I think a good amount of us have been talking with our recruiter, of course, as internships have wrapped up. And there is a note that the process is changing. So I can't say like whether this is exactly right, but you usually start with like a more like short like behavioral chat, almost like your general screening, like learning more about you, walking through your resume. And then after that, a more like product-y interview, which of course I bet like product veg is teaching you so much about like where you're walking through a product, and doing that kind of like on the go exercise that Ian brought up would be great for that. Like think about new features, to products, technical and non-technical that you use. And then finally a super day where you have 3 different interviews back to back with different interviewers. Yeah. That's at least what I think it should be. And I think it should stay that relatively same format unless they're really changing something. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, one thing I will highlight is there used to be a hacker rank challenge, and they're doing away with that this year. And that's to sort of decrease barriers of accessibility and make sure that as many people from different backgrounds who are suitable for the PM role can apply and have a good time and feel confident applying.
Thank you.
Awesome. So thank you, panelists, for taking your time and speak to us today. I've learned so much. So my question is, I guess, 2 parts. First is, I know Salesforce, I've heard people saying that Salesforce is more of a sales-driven company. Do you feel that way, or do you think products still play a pretty important role in decision-making? And then second part of the question is for each of you, when you were getting offers, did you have any competing offer? And if so, why did you choose Salesforce? Thank you.
Yeah, about the sales-driven aspect. So definitely a huge sales-focused company, just because like the name in itself, Salesforce, it came from Sales Cloud, and that was the OG product that Salesforce made. But definitely the product org is like anecdotally, all the sort of leaders of each cloud tend to come from the product organization. So the GMs, which are general managers, are the people who lead each cloud, whether that be Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, whatever. And they, again, anecdotally, but they really do tend to be previous PMs.
And just to add on that, it is a sales-driven company, but in a different, like, I guess, point of view. It's a sales-driven company because the people we sell to are our users, and our users ultimately impact like how the product should go, right? So we want to, like, Salesforce is always changing. It seems like this huge company and we're like acquiring a lot of companies as well, but like we're doing that because we're always user focused. So in order to tailor to what our users really need and want, that's why we are sales driven, but at the same time, product driven. So I feel like those two things go hand in hand. And yeah, so that was just like, I wanted to add that on.
Awesome. I guess for the second part of the question, did any of you had competing offers? Or if you didn't have competing offers, that's okay. I guess just like, why did you choose Salesforce?
Ian, we can't actually hear you. It's potentially the headphone.
My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. I'm sorry. It was muted. Yeah, I was going to say I was going to be a solutions engineer or iOS engineer before APM at Salesforce. The reason I chose Salesforce was simply because at the time there was a lot of like social misjustice going on and a lot of racial issues. And I was just seeing how Salesforce was like, hey, we're giving money to these schools to help these issues. And I was seeing how personally employees were taking their kids to marches. And I was like, oh, they're actually putting their money where their mouth is, where what they're saying. They actually care. And so that was the main reason I chose Salesforce over any other tech company.
For me, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I was a SWE intern at Salesforce the summer before. So it was basically debating between my return offer or going with the APM program. And I guess I really wanted to try out something new. That's kind of my personality or my approach to career things, like trying out new things, seeing what I can learn. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity with the smaller cohort, still like liking Salesforce as a company, but seeing it from a different point of view. And there was nowhere else where I really wanted to PM besides Salesforce. Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. Oh, Sasha, go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, the two things I was looking at outside of Salesforce APM was product management, another B2B company, and then tech consulting. I ended up like choosing not to go the tech consulting route just because I felt like product management had all the best parts of tech consulting without the bad parts of tech consulting, such as like travel to random parts of the country. So I decided to eliminate that. And then looking at the two PM offers, one was for PM and then the other was APM at Salesforce. I really wanted to have that rotational cohort experience. So that's kind of why I ended up going with the cohort. Since it would be 12 people, I felt like it would be more of a community rather than just like a PM internship.
Oh, just confirm me, 12 people for the full-time APM as well?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I also had a similar story as Sasha. I also had a tech consulting role offer, but I chose Salesforce because product management, I enjoy having a view of the entire life cycle of a product as opposed to just the implementation part of a product, if that makes sense. Yeah, so thank you, Iris, for asking your questions. Linda and then Shreya, please go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thanks so much for giving me the chance to ask the question. And thanks so much for sharing all of your experiences. My name is Linda, and currently I am a rising junior at Columbia University studying computer science. And my question for you all is, the first one is, since Salesforce is a B2B company, and I think most of our previous projects would be like to consumer products. Like, how would you kind of transfer your previous to consumer experience to your to-be product design process? And the second question I have is like, after being an APM intern or full-time at Salesforce, what's your plan for the future? Do you want to continue on the PM role, or do you have any other idea, or like moving towards along the career ladder, or like become an entrepreneur or anything like that? Thanks so much for answering them.
I can jump into the second part of the question. And I referenced this a bit earlier. I'm kind of like in a spot of like existential career strife right now, where I very much do not know what I want to do going forward. I used to think I wanted to go to law school, but I think I like the idea of going to law school more than I would actually like going to law school. So I don't know if this is helpful at all, but like, it's just, I guess, to say that there really is no one set path after the Salesforce APM program, or like any APM program. So the Salesforce APM program, we just had our first cohort, the 2019 cohort, graduate from the program. So we're sort of all waiting with bated breath to see what they do, because that will sort of set the precedent for what paths are viable going forward. Definitely a lot of people stay at the company and continue to be full-time PMs. A lot of people are now senior PMs from that cohort. But also, just like speaking from APM programs in general, the Google APM program has minted many founders and entrepreneurs. People I would expect would go into like business consulting or tech consulting. They might go into SWE. They might, like myself personally, I am thinking of going a more creative route. I want to either go to grad school for something, or like, I don't know, actually. So yeah, all of that is to say, like, there's no prescriptive way to do life after the APM program.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for sharing that.
And then on your first point about taking like B2C experience into B2B, I don't have really any like solid like previous B2B or B2C experience, because it's all been B2B. But I will say there's so many different products in Salesforce, and having a broad perspective, diverse perspective is always super helpful. And as just in Salesforce, we're really focusing on making our products very user-centric, very customer-centric. That's something we always focus on. So having that B2B sort of experience is going to be really helpful in things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily be worried about, oh, I don't have B2B experience. Like, any experience that you have that you think can be useful in your PM career or job is probably going to be great, because as Emma mentioned before, having people with diverse experiences is super beneficial for the cohort, and then actually for your project, your product at Salesforce at large.
Great, thank you. Shreya, can you go next for the sake of time?
Yes, sir. Thank you everyone, first of all, for today's session. And I'd like to especially mention Emmett, because I've connected with him on LinkedIn previously, and I follow his content, and I think it's amazing. So I'm really excited to see you in person, online. And yeah, so just to give a brief intro about myself. So I'm from India. Currently, I'm in the United States, and I'm an engineering management student at Duke University, and I'm interested in product. So I come from a consulting background. I have had 3 years of work as in the business consulting domain under data analytics. And I wanted to understand if, I would like to take your advice as to how do I transition to product, because I don't have any direct product experience, but at the same time, I just like the idea of it. I've researched a bit about products. So how do I make that transition? And second part to that, when I prepare my resume, a lot of it looks like consulting mixed with analytics. So how do I really make it product worthy resume, you know? Yeah. And just one last question. When do these applications close?
Those are good questions. I guess like as college students, I myself at least didn't have a lot of like product experience. I had product at a like internship at a startup, but because they were short on hand, so like that wasn't my main activity for the summer. So one thing I did is, as I mentioned before, kind of like researching skills needed for PM and then branding yourself in those skills. Because like you said, you talked about doing consulting, like a huge part of consulting is caring for your customer. And that's what PM was about. Like that's a huge role. So conveying that through that product lens. So I'm just very sure that you have like all the skills needed. You just need to like rephrase them in the bullets, so in your resume, in like a PM lens. And for me at least, research helped a lot with that, and just looking up like what is successful PM, and then reading through that, I was like, oh, I did this in my club. Like even though I wasn't creating a product, I was collaborating and emphasizing with a lot of users and making sure that their needs are met through my efforts to help them. So just branding yourself as a PM, and I think that would speak very well. As for the dates, I don't think any of us are able to speak to that, just because we're not sure, since we're not recruiters, when they would decide to close that. I don't think there's a set date for close time. I think it's just like when they get a certain amount of applications. A complete guess, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll chime in there. I know the full-time application was open for 2 weeks. So I imagine the intern application is probably similar. I know it's definitely not longer. Historically, it hasn't stayed open for longer than like a month, I think. Okay. But a lot of these APM applications are open a very short amount of time. And in terms of like pivoting, I think there's two parts of that. There's one, like getting into the mindset of being a PM, and like also tailoring your resume. I think you were asking more about like tailoring your resume. And I think it's very much in the language and the verbiage that you use. So like, again, speaking on my theater experience, I very much emphasize the project management aspects of it. So I said I was like coordinating between all these departments. I was overseeing a timeline. I was overseeing a budget. I made like X% ROI on the budget versus the ticket sales, like that sort of thing. So you can really draw out the parts of the experience or the process, or like any leadership experience you have that is similar or analogous to PM core competencies.
Okay, great. Actually, just one thing here. So I was also involved in theater, by the way. So I just got that. Yeah, during my undergrad for 4 years. So yeah, I can definitely use that. Yeah.
And awesome. Just one small tip, right before we end, I just want to say to everybody, just a small tip, and to answer your question, we use product management skills every day in life. So whether you were a restaurant employee or you worked at Adidas or Nike, or you were orientation like me, use product skills every day. You communicate with people, you influence people, you create ideas, like you think about ideas. That's something we use every day in our life. So do not discount any of your experiences.
I love that. Thank you so much, Ian, for wrapping us up with that really motivating message. I definitely agree. My non-PM experiences have shaped me to be a great PM, and I'm sure all the panelists would agree with that. So thank you so much, everyone. All the product buds out there, I think almost 200 people at one point were tuned into this panel. So amazing turnout. Feel free to find our panelists on LinkedIn. Panelists, if you would like to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat, if you're comfortable with doing so. And product buds, make sure you personalize your request to connect and mention that you were at this panel and that you found great insights from it. And if you learn something new, also make a LinkedIn post about it and tell the LinkedIn community what you learned, tag product buds, tag our panelists. And yeah, best of luck to everyone on your recruitment journey. I'm so excited to see that all of you are so eager about Salesforce and all the great product management opportunities that we have. Definitely keep an eye out on the Salesforce Workday page for new opportunities that are popping up every single day. Reminder that myself and the panelists are not recruiters nor hiring managers, but if you found this to be helpful, definitely give us a shout out. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.